Okay, welcome to the Wiggles Bouncing and Animating to a Path tutorial. So in this tutorial, we're going to cover a couple of techniques that I think you'll find very useful in your motion design skill set for the term. So I have here already made some compositions with these different animations just to show you what we're going to do, and then we'll jump in and start working on these compositions. So for the Wiggles, I'm going to show you some really lovely presets that has some very nice wiggling going on. Wiggles are a very useful tool to create motion in your composition that's very simple, but still creates that focal point and brings your viewer's eye to a certain place within your composition, depending on what it is that you're doing. Then we are going to learn how to adjust position, scale, and it's just position and scale, actually. And we are going to replicate the movement of a bouncing ball. And then I'm going to show you how to make that looping so that it is bouncing forever. And then we are going to learn how to take an asset and animate that to a path, which is a very useful tool in motion design to be able to draw out a path and then have a particular asset move to that, in the shape of that path. So that is what we're going to do for this tutorial. What I'm going to have you do is go ahead and, of course, launch After Effects and start a new project. And then I'm going to have you go ahead and start a new composition. We are going to stick to our 600 by 600 composition size because we are going to output these as animated GIFs. We will work in to rendering out video assets later on, but for right now, we're just working on very foundational movement, and exporting these as GIFs are a really simple way to render them out and then turn them into canvas. So this is what we're going to stick to. So let's do 600 by 600, 24 as a frame rate as we have been doing, and then 5 seconds of duration. So go ahead and hit OK. In this one, I'm going to have you go ahead and create a new solid layer. So go ahead and pick whatever color you like. I think for this one, I'm going to go to more of a pink color. And then I want you to create a text layer. You can use whatever word you want. I am going to call this Wiggles 2. There's not enough room for my text, so I need to select it and make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so we're going to make 3 of these, and I'm going to show you a very cool way to quickly produce more layers. So if you go to your text layer and you select it, all you need to do is you can go to Edit and Duplicate, or you can do Command or Control D, and I'm going to do that twice, and you're going to see that it created Wiggles 3 and Wiggles 4. So I am just going to come over here and I'm going to pull those down, and now we have 3 text layers just like that. All right, easy peasy. And then what I'm going to have you do is go over to your Effects and Presets panel. If you don't see it here, you can go to Windows and grab it that way, Effects and Presets. And in the search bar in the top, I'm going to have you type in Wiggles, or maybe just Wiggle, sorry. So here are some of the preset behaviors we have for Wiggle. There's gelatin, position, rotation, scale, shear, and then of course Wiggle-rama. So wiggling is probably something that you're going to use all the time in motion design. So these are very, very useful presets. So let's go ahead and choose the first one. So I'm going to take Wiggle Gelatin and I'm just going to drag it and drop it onto Wiggles 2. You can also have the layer selected and then double click the preset. That's another way that you can apply that to a particular layer. Okay, so now that we have this applied to Wiggles 2, you can see in the effect control panel, so there's your project panel and then your effect controls. If you don't see this up, your effect controls window can be found down here in the bottom area of your window selection menu. And what you're going to see here is that there are a bunch of different adjustments that you can make. And I just realized my mouse is really small, so I am going to go in and just make that large really quick so that you can see what I am doing. Let's just make that nice and big. Okay, so there's all these different settings that you can adjust and see how that affects the animation. So we've got Wiggles 2. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. By the way, when you're in your canvas window, if you hit your space bar, a little hand will show up. I use this all the time, and the hand allows you to click and drag and grab your canvas window so that it can kind of sit, you know, in a you can have just the top of it showing here if you really need to have that close up and see what you're doing, which in a tutorial it's good to do, right? So here is the Wiggle Gelatin. So you can kind of see it's a little bit more, you know, it's staying in the same place on this side, and there's more movement on this side. So you can just make some adjustments. Like I might bring the wiggle amount down to, let's say, 11 or 12. You can see it's a little bit more constrained over there. So this is Wiggle Gelatin. And so feel free to go through and make different adjustments here. You can kind of see how they affect the text layer sometimes, or sometimes you just need to play it back. So, okay. So on Wiggles 3, you can do position, rotation, and scale. Those are pretty self-explanatory as to how the wiggles are going to be. And they're perfectly fine depending on what you're doing, but we're going to do the ones that are a little bit more complicated. So we're going to choose Wiggle Shear for the second layer. And so shear is going to be adjusting, the wiggles are going to be more on a, you know, when you're adjusting sheerness, it's sort of how the asset leans one way or the other, right? That kind of leans it. So this is going to wiggle on how the text is leaning either to the left or the right. And then again, you have your adjustments up here. Now let's say you put an effect on a layer and you don't want that effect to be on that layer anymore. A really easy way to get rid of it is you can just, so let's say we applied Wiggle Shear to this layer and we decided we don't like it. You can simply highlight it at the top here, like so, and you can just hit delete. And it actually applied a few different things. So like I said, the presets are more of a mix of different commands that have been put onto a particular asset, and then they're saved. So you might have 3 different sort of adjustments or animation behaviors that were applied to a particular thing, and then it was saved as a preset. So now that's deleted off of there and I have a clean slate again. But let's say I go back in and I'm like, ooh, I really would like to apply that again. Remember, you can also do this. You can select the layer and then double click Wiggle Shear, and there it is back on that particular layer. If you want to see how something is affecting your layer, there is this little FX box to the left of like Wiggle Shear, for example. You can click that off, and it's actually going to turn that particular effect off of that layer, and you can see, you know, how it's affecting the layer on and off, and you can toggle that way. So that's another thing that you can do. All right, I'm gonna hit my space bar and click and drag up so I can see my third layer here. And that's Wiggle-Rama. So lots of wiggling going on for the last one. I'm gonna go ahead and just drag and drop that. Okay, perfect. And it looks like, let's see here. I must have dropped that. I have my layers mixed up, yes. So I'm going to, what I did is I applied Wiggle-Rama to the top layer that already has Wiggle Gelatin applied to it. So I'm going to Command Z that, undo that. And what I have here is a situation where my layers are not in order very well, and they're not labeled very well either. So I'm going to bring layer Wiggles 2 to the top because that's technically on top. Wiggles 3 is in the middle, and Wiggles 4 is on the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to take that Wiggle-Rama, I'm going to drag and drop it. I dropped it on the wrong layer again, so it might be easier for me to just select the layer and then double click. All right, so now I have 3 different wiggling presets. Again, go in here and play around with all this stuff and, you know, choose a fun font for it. So what you're going to do then for this is what we have been already doing. You're going to go to Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder Q. You're going to let that launch. While that launches, I also want to encourage everybody to feel free to go in and play around with a lot of these effects and presets on layers. Distort is a great one. There's a lot of really great stuff in there. Expressions, noise and grain. There's some really nice ones in there as well. All right, so we've got media encoder going here. So I'm just gonna wait until my composition adds to the render queue. Also, if you haven't done this already, make sure that you save your project. You created a new project. Now you're gonna go to File and Save As, and you're gonna save that project in a place on your computer as you work on this particular tutorial. All right, so we've got animated GIF. We want just the regular animated GIF match source. We'll get into transparency eventually. This, I'm just going to tell it to go to my desktop. It's called Wiggles, so that's perfect. I'm going to render that out. And this is the first part of this tutorial. This file will be one of the 3 files that you turn in for credit for this tutorial. Okay. So here I have my animated GIF. And there we go. We've got all kinds of wiggling going on. All right, everybody. So this concludes part 1 of the tutorial for this week. Let me know if you have any issues as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.